That's right. You're listening to another episode of the co-main event mixed martial arts podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for the last 13 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, we got a pretty busy show this weekend. We're rolling in off UFC Fight Night from down there in Perth, Australia. You had Carlos Ulberg go out there and knock out Dom Reyes in the first round in what was a pretty brutal knockout.
Did Ulberg even take a single punch? Just seemed like just wore him around like a button, Jad.
He sure did. Yeah, boat raced him, you might even say.
You might say that.
I think we're going to do a little bit of talk about that coming up later. Of course, this Saturday, we're heading into UFC 320, where Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira will rematch for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. That is back home for the UFC at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Of course, the other championship fight there, the men's bantamweight contest between Merab Dvalishvili and Corey Sandhagen. So that obviously deserves some talk, and we will get to that, I think, pretty soon. We got listener mail coming up at the bottom of the hour. First of all, though, I guess I'm just going to get to this listener mail question because it gets us into what we want to talk about here at the top of the show. From Honey Boy Palmer.
Oh, nice.
Writes in to say,
right?
So Wanderlei Silva came out of retirement for a boxing match this past weekend, and things did not go well for your boy.
No.
Old Vandy got himself disqualified in the fourth round, then got KTFO'd cold in the ensuing brawl by a guy in a tuxedo carrying a championship belt. Hope it was worth it. Now, here's what's interesting about this email from the Honey Boy. Not only did you and I refer to what happened to Wanderlei Silva as getting KTFO'd multiple times, we also both pointed out that he was knocked out by a guy in a tuxedo. I also saw that Chael Sonnen tweeted something about how Wanderlei got knocked out by a guy in a tuxedo. So there's a lot permeating the collective consciousness here about Wanderlei Silva getting knocked unconscious, out cold, flat on his back in the middle of this boxing ring. People will joke on the social medias whenever I'm not watching a fight event. If I just see a tweet that says he dead show up on my timeline, I know somebody has been horribly knocked out. This was sort of like a he dead situation, but maybe we're not joking because he was down and out for a while. And this was an ugly thing to see happen to Wanderlei Silva, man.
It was, man. And especially because it's like, what were we even doing to begin with? We're having, like, this was supposed to be a boxing match with him and Vitor Belfort, right? Then Vitor pulls out. We take another guy who Wanderlei outweighs by like 40 pounds or whatever it was. Then you go in there, you get yourself disqualified. So that's bad right there. That's not great.
I got to be honest, I did not watch the actual fight. I hope that people will forgive me that, but I did see some of the social media.
Forgive you that.
I did see some of the social media highlights. It just seemed to me that Wanderlei was out there headbutting, man.
Yeah, it was. That part seems kind of indisputable just based on the video evidence that I saw. So that already, even if that had been the end of it, Wanderlei Silva goes out there against a replacement opponent who he outweighs by a ton and gets disqualified. That would have been a bad look for your boy. But then this brawl breaks out. You got the Go Horse out there just throwing bungalows. Fabricio Verdum just taking on all comers. You got Wanderlei out there. And then he just gets clocked by a guy who looks like when the dudes in Inglourious Basterds dress up as fake Italian cameramen for the Nazi movie premiere. Antonio Margaret, like that's what he looks like. And he got guys out there just drilling you, and Wanderlei is out cold. And the kindest thing anybody can do for him in that moment is they pick up his arms and then they drag his lifeless body into the corner of the ring so that he does not get stepped on during the ongoing melee. And you see that, and you're just like, man, what a hell of a night of work. You probably thought that when you heard that some fight like this was booked in the first place, you were probably like, well, that's sad, man. And you had no idea how sad it was about to get. You go out there, you get into this thing where controversial ending, and then it's like you can feel the combat gods, the fight sports gods being like, well, we're not satisfied. We demand blood. We demand somebody be thrown into the volcano. And it's poor Wanderlei.
Yeah.
Just gets clocked.
I am reminded of a couple of expressions. The first one, as your parent or grandparent may have told you at some point, nothing good happens after midnight. Nothing good happens when you're in a fight like this, man. What's the best case scenario if you're Wanderlei Silva and you take this boxing match in Brazil again? Who is he fighting? Like some kind of famous person, right? Like, wasn't this sort of like a Brazilian exhibition kind of thing? Isn't that what we were doing here?
I'm not an expert on what's going on in Brazil. Who's famous in Brazil?
What's the best case scenario there? Like you pitter patch your way to a boxing match against this guy, get a little payday. Things took a turn. Things finished much, much worse than that. The second expression that I'm reminded of is Chris Rock saying, "You're not old, but you're too old to be in the club." Wanderlei, my man, you're 49 years old. As we know from recent exhibition boxing experience, you're not actually too old to be taking one of those fights, but you're too old to be doing this, my man. When a brawl breaks out in the ring, that's when you and Fab Verdum should be excusing yourselves to go to the bar and have a cocktail.
Yeah.
Let these young bucks in tuxedos sort it out, man. You can't be getting in a brawl like this, Wanderlei. You're damn near 50 years old.
I mean, this has to be the one, though, that convinces him, like, we need to be done with this, right? This has to be it.
Did you see the aftermath photos on
Yeah.
social media today where he's driving in the car, his eyes all fucked up, he's got a broken nose, he's saying he's having headaches, he's going to get checked out at the hospital? Like, if something is going to convince you, if there's anything that's going to convince you that maybe you are in fact too old to be in the club, it's this.
Yeah. Yeah, I would hope so, especially because Wanderlei was among those fighters, as was Fabricio Verdum, filing the paperwork with the court during all the UFC antitrust lawsuit stuff, talking about how he believed he was experiencing symptoms related to all the concussions that he had taken in fight sports. And goddamn, if we haven't all seen him take a bunch. And that's just the ones that we saw him take in Pride in the UFC, watching his career. He also was famously a core member of Shoota Box back in their blood and guts days, where sparring was just all out wars all the time. To hear those guys tell it, the brain trauma has got to be adding up. You don't add to it, especially for something like this. Not this, I could see.
That's what I'm saying, man. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This sport, I suppose both boxing and MMA, we'll have some brawls, man.
Oh, yeah.
We are no stranger to a brawl in this sport and in boxing. Shoot Box has been involved in a couple of them. All right. We saw this one. Remember the old Shoot Box Hammer House brawl back in Pride.
There was the Crazy Horse Bennett situation backstage at Pride, which also, it sounded like, did not go great for Wanderlei.
We've seen some other instances. We saw the Strike Force CBS brawl. What's the thing in boxing? Is it Larry Holmes who like jumps up on top of a car?
No, well, I think it's Larry Holmes who runs across the top of a limousine to drop kick Trevor Berbick. Is that right?
Something like that. This might take them all, man. Like, this might take the cake out of all of them to see a well-known, respected, in some cases beloved former fighter just get sent to the black lands, man, flat on his back. This might be the most dramatic brawl that we've seen.
Shit was sad, man. Shit was real sad. And it is kind of, it's maybe a sign of this sport where a brawl, even of this nature, we're not even like, how could they let order completely fall apart and chaos reign to such an extent that we're out here brawling at the end of this professional sporting event? Instead, we're talking about the X's and O's of what people's performance in said brawl. We're not even really surprised anymore. Like, oh, no, we gotta have ourselves an occasional brawl, like you said. Like, we're that part, that part almost is what we feel we are owed if you're going to end the main event in the disqualification. Like, if you're going to give us that sort of like unsatisfying ending to something like that, we almost feel like we're owed a little bit of chaos. Like, entertain us somehow if you're not going to give us an entertaining fight. But damn, man, seeing Wanderlei just laid out by a dude in a tuxedo. That's the part too. We had this conversation over email with the big homie Kevin Sesha, friend of the show, where he noted that's why that weird thing where the better dressed a guy is who knocks you out, the worse it is somehow.
Yeah.
And that really holds true here, because you're just like, you didn't get knocked out by a guy in a biker vest, you got knocked out by a guy who looked like he was on his way to the opera. That hurts, man.
Yeah. Kevin Sesha, Hollywood TV writer, by the way, he took it straight to personal emails the night of. You could tell he got home from some Hollywood shindig probably with the glitterati out there on the West Coast. He got home, found out this email immediately. This was like a red ball headline. Had to get this out right away. That's the kind of news that this Wanderlei Silva thing is making. Whereas the actual fight, how many people could have watched that, man? Right? Tens of people, literal tens of people must have tuned in to watch the actual fight. Now you got millions of people talking about you getting knocked out by a guy in a tuxedo. You probably thought he was coming to give you your keys from the valet. And the next thing you know, you're looking at the lights. You're staring at the arena lights.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this fight was a big deal in Brazil. It seemed like it was not even a thing that we remembered was going on here in the U.S. It was, though, the Spaten. They kept referring to it as a Spaten Fight Night. I did not even connect it that they meant the beer until I saw these clips from the thing, and you see people wearing the like Spaten logo on their clothes and everything. And I'm like, if you're the sponsor of that event, the beer sponsor,
that's a German beer, right?
Yeah, good beer. I'm a fan of the beer. Do you consider this a success? Because you got the logo out there. People saw it.
More people than you thought. Yeah.
People were reminded of the existence of your beer there. Maybe just not in the context you thought. But are you still like, hey, win's a win. We'll take it.
Yeah, if you are the advertising rep, the sponsorship rep over at Spaten who brokered this deal, are you happy, or are you sitting in your cubicle somewhere in Germany right now just trying to be still and hope that it all blows over?
I think what you're doing is the same way like people on a website will talk about like total number of impressions. They'll be like, the views on this thing are crazy. The number of people that saw the logo, the 10 times what we thought it was going to be. So success. We're calling it a success.
Just hoping HR doesn't come down. Can you hop on a call real quick? Hoping to not get that email. Well, that's too bad for Wanderlei, man. It hurts to see one of these beloved legends from the sport have such a terrible thing befall him.
Yeah.
All right, a little earlier than normal, but might as well transition here. Remember, you're listening to the Co-Main Event podcast. This show drops every Monday or Tuesday afternoon for free in your timelines and your podcast libraries. But if you want even more of the Co-Main Event, you can find Ben Folks and myself all week over on Patreon. Hit us up at patreon.com/co-main event. Get loads of extra audio and video content, as well as access to our official Discord message board where they're talking fights and a lot of other stuff all the time. Ben, you know what they're talking about right now is the big sumo basho just wrapped up. The September basho. I ain't going to say no spoilers, but there's high drama on day 15 heading into the end of this tournament. You had the two Yokozuna, Ono Sato and Hoshoryu. They were squaring off for the title. So essentially, exactly what you want. Exactly how you want to draw this thing up from the beginning of the tournament. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but it was exciting. It was some real exciting stuff. Another way that you can support the show is by going to our merchandise shop at co-mainevent.com. We got t-shirts, we got hats, we got hoodies, we got lots more. Stop by, pick up the best-selling Daddest Man on the Planet coffee mug. While we can keep those bad boys in stock, you can get yourself a Dundasso t-shirt or a hoodie, get a Bobby Nuck shirt, get a Volcomania t-shirt. We got it all. Just go to our website, co-mainevent.com, and click the link at the top of the page that says shop. As always, we partner with our friend Johnny Ashcroft on the shop. He is a graphic designer from Portland, Oregon, war-ravaged Portland, Oregon. We can't recommend him highly enough for all your design needs. Hit him up at studiosuperconductor.com or on Instagram at studiosuperconductor. And right now, like we always do about this time, let's do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
First piece of listener mail this week comes to us from our guy, Darkwing Duck, who writes in to say, Dana White went on 60 Minutes of all fucking things and once again sidestepped the fighter pay issue. What's next? Questions from Hugh Downs on 2020 about head trauma? See, that's a reference for gentlemen of a certain age right there.
Now, I saw this thing.
It's long. This was 13. I watched this on YouTube this morning after you texted me last night to tell me that it was going to be happening. This was damn near 15 minutes, which on a television broadcast, that is some substantial shit.
Well, I saw the ad for it earlier that day while watching football. And at first I was like, whoa, how did I not know this was happening? Dana White's on 60 Minutes tonight? And I didn't really put it together. And I was just like, that's odd. Like a Dana White story on 60 Minutes. So we're just doing general Dana White stuff. And then, of course, at the end of the ad, they show the CBS Paramount logo. And I went, oh, there it is. There it is. And then I said the same thing this morning when after watching this absolute puff piece that they did on Dana White, this morning shows up in my inbox the announcement that CBS Paramount is also getting Zuffa boxing. And I went, there it is again. That's what we're doing here, is we're doing a little, kid glove PR for Dana White, since we're going all in on Dana White's various combat sports business projects. I expect the slap fighting announcement any day now. That, I guess it's not that surprising. It's still just disappointing when you think about what 60 Minutes used to be. Remember 60 Minutes when we were kids? It was like the number one serious, hard-hitting news program. For people who don't know, maybe the young bucks out there in the crowd, go watch The Insider with Al Pacino and Russell Crowe, and you see, like, that was what 60 Minutes used to be about. That hasn't been the case for a while now, you could argue, and especially Paramount seems like it's certainly trying to become a certain type of media organization, which is going to make shit like that less likely. But even I was surprised at just how easy we took it on Dana White, especially because the interview starts with him basically being like, ask me anything you want. And it's like, okay, how do we get into a discussion about masculinity and toxic masculinity and where masculinity fits into our culture? How do we get into that conversation with Dana White and not even mention that we all saw him slap his wife in a nightclub just a couple of years ago? Not even mention it.
Well, and he also said that he doesn't believe, when they're talking about cancel culture later on in the piece, and he says, I don't believe in ruining somebody's life because they do something dumb. So you had two really
mentioned the Charlie
obvious,
Kirk thing with that too. Yeah, like
two really obvious points of entry to talk about that particular incident, and they didn't take either of them.
right, and they even show that clip of Bryce Mitchell being like, "I'm so glad in the media in the UFC where I can say anything I want," and they don't mention what it is he wanted to say though. They don't give you context for why Bryce Mitchell was talking like that, like because it reads differently. If you had Dana White being like, "Hey, we let people say what they want," Bryce Mitchell's like, "I'm so happy, let me say what we want." Here's a clip of Bryce Mitchell talking about how he wants to go fishing with Hitler, who he thinks was a good guy who did a good job driving the Jews out of his country, and you're just like, whoa, that's a different story then. And they clearly did not want that kind of story. They wanted puff piece. That's exactly what they wanted. Fawning, glazing puff piece where we spend a few minutes watching him win big at the Baccarat table. Watch him show up to the Bellagio where they greet him with cigars and scotch. Like all this kind of shit where we're just like, look at this big time guy. Even Obama thinks he did a good job. Look at this guy. And not mention it, like even the mention of fighter pay is just cursory. It's like, hey, some people say the fighters don't get enough money. Dana White saying, no one knows what they get. Okay, good enough. And we're off to the next. Like just no real interest in exploring any of the serious questions about it. And if you're going to tell me like, hey, we just want to do a sports business story about Dana White and the UFC, first of all, I'd ask, why now? Oh, we know why now, because the company that airs your show has signed a big agreement with him. But also, you got in that you guys raised the question of a lot of this like cultural stuff, like masculinity, the UFC's tough guy brand, all this kind of stuff, like cancel culture. He mentions the Charlie Kirk stuff. You took it there, but then you don't really want to follow where it goes. You don't really want to tell anybody anything about Dana White that he might not want them to hear. There's not a single thing in there that he might not want people to hear. And that to me is just like, I just hope those guys at least know what they're doing. I hope that they wrap this thing up, they ship this story in, and we're like, well, I guess that's the business now. We just have to do PR for rich, powerful people that have a deal with our parent company. Anywho, off to the bank. Like, at least tell me that they know, that they're not kidding themselves, that they did some journalism here.
Remember when when Dana White announced the Paramount Skydance deal, and they asked him about fighter pay, and the first thing he said was like, well, fighters are going to get great exposure from this. Who's the first person that went out there and got himself some exposure? Oh, it's Dana White on 60 Minutes. It's not the fighters. It's Dana White getting this pretty light touch story on 60 Minutes. The interesting thing, one of the interesting things about this is when they mention fighter pay, right? Because Dana White has had the page in the Dana White playbook going back more than a decade now, where he says nobody knows how much these guys get paid.
Mm-hmm. So it could be anything. Could be great.
And the truth is that we actually kind of do now.
Yeah.
We actually kind of do know what they get paid. Not only because of the class action lawsuit, which is mentioned in passing in this story, just like they give it a one sentence and then you ask them about fighter pay and you don't bring that up. But because of disclosure in the class action lawsuit, because of the sale to TKO, and this is a privately traded company, and we have these investors reports, and because of the work of people like John Nash in the MMA media, we have a pretty good idea what these people get paid. And the idea that you can sit there and say we don't know what they get paid is essentially either a lie or a crime at this point, because you had to disclose this shit to a federal judge, man. If you're telling me that nobody knows what these guys get paid, that sounds like you might have committed a crime. Well, and so, for him to just pawn this thing off with the same thing that he has said for 10 or 12 years and not even kind of get pushed on it is really disappointing, as you mentioned, from an outlet like this.
Well, and that's the thing too, is it's like everything about it read as we're doing the greatest hits of Dana White's talking points when it comes to any sort of criticism, any sort of questions about the UFC. All the usual stuff is here. It's when you're asked about it, nobody knows anything about this fucking business, Chad. Nobody except him. He is the only person that knows anything about this business. Like you said, At this point, man, we've seen a lot of the documents. We do know some stuff about how this business is working. It has a lot of it has come out. So to still just continue to say the same thing, nobody knows what they get paid, nobody knows how this business functions. Man, we kind of do. You're just continuing to say it over and over again, the same way you're just like, continuing to make the same claims about like I'm sure they got some footage somewhere on the cutting room floor of him talking about how if there's a basketball game on one corner and a football game on another corner, like fighting's in our DNA. We're just running through all the stuff here. So there's nothing at all new here. And that's the thing is like you watch this right now and you're just like, okay, so you clearly decided to do a story on Dana White. They mentioned we've been trying to get him to come on 60 Minutes for a while. Oh yeah, he didn't agree to it until then we got a story on Dana White when you're set to begin airing several of Dana White's products in the new year, and we do it real nice for him. Like, it's just the TV version of what he does when he goes on these podcasts. And I guess the thing that's most disappointing to me is that he does it with John Wertheim, who I know knows better. He does know how to ask some of these questions. He does know like where the serious stuff is for the UFC, and we just didn't get there because they're not at all interested in it. That's not at all what they're doing on 60 Minutes anymore.
Can I say this though? Dana White is really good at this. Now that we are so far down the path that he has been asked almost every question that could be asked of him. I don't know that there's been a time when people have really had all of the information to push back on some of the fighter pay and other issues in the UFC. And in fact, he seems to pointedly avoid conversations that could lead to that. I mean, even the guy on Logan Paul's podcast pushed back a little bit more than 60 Minutes. When Dana White was out there a couple weeks ago talking about what has peaceful protest ever accomplished. But he does in fact have this way about him. And this is either why he has been so successful being the face of the UFC or a product of being the face of the UFC for so long. If you didn't know, like if you didn't really actually spend time around this sport and know the stuff that goes on, you would probably come away with this thinking that this guy was awesome, right? Because he has this, like, he does have this like charisma. He at least gives the appearance of being forthright, and like his whole gimmick of being like, ask me anything, I don't give a shit, and then appearing to answer all of these questions. It works for him, man. I have to say, he's very good at it. You watch this thing and he is very good at presenting himself as like a reasonable, straight talking, hard-nosed businessman, right? Which in many ways, it's kind of what he is, but certainly we gloss over the rougher edges, the jagged areas of what has made the UFC and Dana White so successful, which again, you'd love to see an outlet like 60 Minutes at least have an idea of how to push back against his claim that there is no such thing as toxic masculinity, or, that fighters are getting paid. Nobody knows what fighters are getting paid. They're all doing great. Right.
Well, especially when you brought it up, like it's, you're bringing up these questions. He gives some Dana White evasions and you just kind of go, okay, moving on. Hell of a guy, and especially it's just like the timing of why we want to do a Dana White puff piece right now seems so very obvious, and squeezed in between stories about whether Russia is sabotaging European countries or not, and whether social media is going to kill us all. You're just kind of like, all right, now we got to do the carrying the water for the business guys over there now that we have a big deal to promote. And yeah, it's just sort of, you watch it and you're just like, all right, Dana White's greatest hits.
Related, we got this email from Jared McDaniels, who wrote in to say, so Zuffa Boxing is officially headed to Paramount. Discourse.
Yeah, I mean, here's the things that caught my eye when I was looking at this, other than just being like, oh yeah, that's what we're doing here. That's why it helps explain Dana White's appearance on 60 Minutes, right? The evening before we announced this thing. the thing that it says here, the bouts will be available via Paramount's direct-to-consumer streaming platform, the potential for select events, simulcast on CBS, 12 action-packed cards with a plan to grow that number in subsequent years. Now, Dana White's quote, "There are millions of boxing fans that will now be able to watch competitive fights with up-and-coming boxers, as well as the biggest stars in the sport." Now, I believe you about the first part. But that's where my question is like, are you going to have, like, because Dana White gets to, like, show up and make an appearance when, the Saudi money makes Canelo Crawford, right? And then he gets to, and even in the 60 Minutes thing, they were willing to give him all the credit he wants for that one, as if he was the one who put that together. But I think you could do up and coming boxers. What that is basically, though, is, fight nights. Like, just sort of, some guys are going to box some other guys. If you're not a boxing head, you probably don't know any of them. The top biggest stars in the sport part, though, do you believe Zuffa Boxing will deliver on that?
Well, we don't know much about what it will look like at all, right? Like that's kind of one of the whole deals here is the unknowns about this. And in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't do a deep dive into the announcement here, but there aren't really very many details about the broadcast deal, right? Like, does it mention like a dollar amount or anything like that? As far as I remember, it does not.
Just as Paramount will distribute a full slate of Zuffa boxing events, starting with 12 action-packed cards.
Yeah, so we're not out here exactly trumpeting the numbers in the same way we did for the UFC broadcast deal. So it all, I think, is kind of up in the air. We have talked a lot about how it will be interesting to see how some of these better known boxers respond to this TKO push into boxing and efforts to either destroy or amend the Ali Act. Because you would love to think that guys like Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford and these other guys who are making tons of money would maybe stand up to it a little bit, just because this threatens to destroy the business model that allows those top name fighters to get that money. And so what top level fighters are going to sign on to be part of Zuffa Boxing? I think it depends on what kind of financial backing they get and from whom, right?
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been TKO reaching into their pockets to make the big fight happen and to try to make frankly, the John Jones, Tom Aspinall fight happen. It was the Saudis reached into their pockets to do that. So, I mean, isn't it far more likely that we get Dana White's Boxing Contender Series?
Yes.
Something like that.
And that is something that I absolutely believe that they could produce. And that's what I mean by when they're talking about up and coming boxing talent, is like, let's find some boxers willing to work cheap, put them under contracts that maybe we would not have been allowed to use before we simply added stuff to the Ali Act. And, maybe some of them become big, maybe they don't. But it also seems like, remember when TKO first announced this plan to their shareholders, one of the points that they really hammered was, we're not putting any money in. The Saudis are putting the money in. We're just running it for them. We're just the promoter for this thing. And so, that makes you wonder what their real stake in this is, how committed they are to making it. And if you do just end up producing a bunch of, like, boxing fight nights that is just more content, I don't know if that's really a world changer for the sport of boxing the way we're being told it will be.
Next question this week comes to us from Furious Styles, who I believe that's the father character in Boys in the Hood. Writes in to say, in the hours after his celebration in Omaha, the cops pulled guns on Bud Crawford. What's up with that? I saw this story earlier today. Not a good look. Not a very good look for the city of Omaha, as I think the mayor of Omaha well knows, because he released like a fairly lengthy, apologetic in some ways statement about this that was basically the too long didn't read version is our bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, our bad. We realized that we kind of fucked up the party here. But, you know, this is, it's tempting to say that this is another example of an interaction between law enforcement and a bunch of black men in a car. There, you know, Terence Crawford and his security detail did have firearms in the car.
That they were
One of which
legally allowed to carry.
legally allowed to carry. So if you're a cop and you see a gun in the car, maybe you react something like this. It's impossible to know without really knowing the details, but or seeing the footage. It's a bad look. It's a bad look for this to happen the day of like the parade and celebration.
That day, a reminder that even if you are rich and successful and accomplished in America, you are still black men in car with guns, and we are gonna freak out about it. And you know, the answer to Furious Styles' question about what's up with that, that's America, man. That's what that is. That's where we're at right now. So it is a real bad look for them to have it happen, especially on that day. They seem to realize that, but that is the world we have created for ourselves.
Next question this week comes to us from Rob Pleasanton, who writes in to say, how many taffas booked does it take to get one taffa in the cage? Ben, we ended up getting zero taffas. We got zero taffas.
We thought when we booked 2 taffas, we thought for sure we'll at least get a 50% taffa rate. We'll at least get 1 taffa in the cage. We get 0. We get a taffa-less fight card in Australia.
It's too bad. And insult to injury, it also prevented us from seeing Louis Sutherland.
Yeah, I know. I was looking forward to finding out what Louis
heavyweight
Sutherland
champion
had.
Yeah.
And that, I mean,
a guy with the most English name maybe in all of fight sports, Louis Sutherland. He's lucky he's not already bouncing at a pub.
Well, it did, you know, maybe it was one of the best things that could have happened to me for our $20 we never want to see again betting segment, because I did just get my $5 back when that fight didn't happen. But yeah, it's the whole thing, you know, I saw the figures afterwards where they were like, hey, you know, here's our live gate, and it was like just over $1 million or something. The UFC, I think, tried to frame it as, this is the best gate we've ever had for a fight night event in Australia. And it's like, yeah, okay. But also, it's a lot less than what you got for your fight night event in Shanghai and your fight night event in Paris. Like the rumors that we had heard about slow ticket sales seem to be borne out by that number. And for a clue to that, you look at the fight card that you didn't have a whole lot on there that people would have actually felt like they had to go see. And I don't know, man, we've been talking about this for a while, that when you see some of these returns coming back and they're not what they used to be anymore, that maybe is that a wake-up call to the UFC that you found the limit. You found the upper limit of how much you can charge for how little you can try in terms of matchmaking for some of these cards. And if you want to get back to those multi-million-dollar gates, when you come back next time, you got to do a little bit better.
God, don't start talking about the business. Dana White will laugh. Nobody knows shit about the business. He laughs every time someone tries to talk about it. Last question this week comes to us from Jansher Khan, who writes in to say, you can't tell me that Cam the Battle Giraffe Roastin isn't the best nickname in the sport. And I don't know that I can disagree with him. You had the middleweight Cameron Roastin go out there, get a TKO win against Andre Petroski 1 minute, 2 minutes 41 seconds into the first round of their middleweight fight. Here's the thing. 6'3", 75-inch reach for Cameron Timothy Rouston. So I got to say, Battle Giraffe, yes, that seems to fit.
Well, also, the thing you got to like about a nickname like Battle Giraffe is I don't think you came up with it yourself. I think that's a nickname that the blokes down at the gym gave you. I think that's something that other people they saw you, they applied that nickname, people loved it, they kept calling you that, and then it stuck. That's the way a nickname ought to work. Plus, you know, if you're looking for something to help you stand out, it's not going to be calling yourself the 200th pit bull that we've ever seen in the sport. You're not going to be able to do that. We've seen all that before, and you don't just go with just something that like whatever rhymes. Like, no, battle giraffe. Okay, we're going to remember that one. The next time this guy's on a fight card, and if you hear the name and you're like, who is that? Have I seen that before? And somebody says he's the battle giraffe. You'll be like, oh shit, yeah, I remember the battle giraffe. You're not going to forget that.
Yeah, coming in off the Contender Series, gets a TKO win over a longtime veteran, Andre Petrosky. Hard to do much better than that, although the same, they did also call Petrosky when they needed to get Edmund Shabazian to win earlier this year. So he's found a role there in the UFC.
That is not one of the better roles to have.
That's going to do it for listener mail this week. If you have a question, comment, or concern that you want to air to the podcast in future weeks, you know how to do it. Go to the website co-mainevent.com and click the link in the top right-hand corner of the screen that says email the podcast. That'll get you in touch with us. Right now, UFC 320 coming up. What is this? Perhaps the second to last pay-per-view of the pay-per-view era? Something like that. Well, seems pretty important. We'll talk about that right after this. Man, we are doing it again, brother. Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira set to rematch for the light heavyweight title in the wake of their March fight at UFC 313, when Magomed Ankalaev emerged with a unanimous decision win and the 205-pound title. So the obligatory rematch now with Alex Pereira. First of all, before we even get into this, we were just talking about the battle giraffe.
Mm-hmm.
Great nickname. Big Ank? No, we're not doing that for Ankalaev. Big Onk? Nope. It's not working for me.
You're putting your foot down?
I'm putting my foot down. I will not call Magomed Ankalaev Big Onk.
Okay. Well, this is big news. We're making big
news. Because a part of that,
it
sounds like a nickname you did, in fact, give yourself.
Yeah, it really does sound like that. It sounds like you were just like, all right, I need some branding. Because so far, nobody gives a shit. I've been UFC champion here for a matter of months, and nobody has given one single fuck about it. So I gotta do something here. Big Ank seems like the proposed solution to that problem. And yeah,
if you were Big Ank when you walked in the door, maybe.
Yeah.
First fight, Big Ank. Maybe then I would have gone with it. No, we're too far down the path.
Or if
to all of a sudden have Big Ank.
If I had gotten the sense that that's what all the boys down at the gym were calling you, and for one thing, he's like 6'3" and a light heavyweight. So he's like a big dude for the general populace, kind of. But he's not necessarily like a big dude for the division, especially. Like, he's a pretty normal sized dude for light heavyweights in the UFC. I don't know. I think you need to be bigger or you need to be really small. Yeah, okay. So it could be an ironic nickname.
Yeah, okay.
But right now, you're for the light heavyweight division in the UFC, you're kind of normal sized Ank.
Just the same height as the battle giraffe.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to go in there against Alex Pereira, who's going to be like taller than you, right? Like, so if you're a big Ank, is he giant Alex? Yeah. I don't know, man.
In fairness, Alex Pereira does have that weird superpower that whenever we see him in a photo with someone, he's just slightly larger than that person.
He is.
We going to get a different outcome here, though?
The thing about the first fight was it seemed like Alex Pereira never really uncorked and let it go. It seemed like, I don't know if he was worried about the takedowns, worried about, I can't expose myself too much. That's what this guy's going to get in close, and then I'm susceptible if he gets me to the mat. But it just seemed like he was holding back for almost the entire fight. Had some moments of success, but just never really seemed like he was the same like aggressive Alex Pereira we were used to. So I wonder how much he changes the strategy of how we go at this guy. because it seems like just like the confidence that we saw in a lot of these other fights wasn't quite there. He seemed like he was worried about what was coming back at him. And I don't know, do you go into this fight more worried about it because you already lost once to this guy and you're trying to shore up all the holes that the guy exposed last time? Or do you go in there and be like, what we need to do is get right after this guy and not let him do his stuff? That's what I'll be interested to see.
Well, you can't show up and do the same thing all over again.
How many times have we seen people do that when we say exactly that? We watch Sean Strickland show up and do the exact same stuff against you. Like, we know you can't expect to win if you do the same stuff. Doesn't mean they won't do it, though.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Sean Strickland was the guy who immediately jumped to mind when you brought that up. And we are not kind. We were not kind to the Sean Strickland performance when he showed up and did, in fact, do the exact same thing. I mean, I hope that Alex and Glover were out there working their takedown defense. I hope that they were doing that. But at the same time, if you're Alex Pereira, you got to go out there and be Alex Pereira, man. You got to let it all hang out a little bit, especially since, you tried it the other way. It didn't work. If you try it this way and it doesn't work again, it's going to be a little bit of a time. You're going to have to wait some time before you get another shot here at Big Onk, the current champ.
I mean, okay, flip side. Let's say Big Onk. Nope. Let's say
that's just not working. So you tried it. I feel like we gave it a good try. We tried. In all earnestness, we gave it a trial, and it just didn't work. It just doesn't feel right.
Let's say he goes out there and he beats Alex Pereira again. Another decision, maybe he even puts him away this time, finishes him off, and then we have to sit here and go, all right, Ankalaev's the champ, goddammit. Make your peace with that, and let's move on as a division. Do you think, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's say he has the best case scenario. He knocks out Alex Pereira, looks great doing it. Do people then get excited about Ankalaev, or are we just kind of going like, well, the Alex Pereira stuff was fun while it lasted, and let's see who's next man up? Maybe Carlos Ulberg. Because it still doesn't feel like we're one Ankalaev win away from people jumping on the bandwagon from where I'm sitting.
Yeah, we've found this out before, over and over again in this sport. It doesn't happen by osmosis, right? You don't steal another person's powers just by defeating them in a cage fight. You still have to be you. And so far, nobody has really given a shit about Magomed Ankalaev. I don't expect the 2 wins over Alex Pereira suddenly gets people really excited, although part of the answer might depend on who you mean by people.
Yeah.
Right? Like MMA fans, if you're showing up to watch the pay-per-views and the PLEs here moving into the future, maybe you get a little bit more excited about Ankalaev if that's the case, but he's not suddenly going to become the new Alex Pereira, right? A year from now, we're not going to be like, oh, Magomed Ankalaev, probably the most important guy in the UFC right now, like we were doing for Pereira when he was at the height of his powers. So yeah, it's not going to happen that way for Ankalaev. If you're Ankalaev, I think you got to hope for a sustained championship run that is long and impressive enough that people eventually have to be like, all right, man, fine. Ankalaev, he's one of the greats. That's kind of what your best case scenario.
All right, man, fine.
Plus 210. Alex Pereira is plus 210 headed into this fight. So,
well, I'm jumping on that.
Are you gonna do it right now? You just don't.
I might lock it in now. I don't want it to.
Yeah. We also got Merab and Corey Sandhagen on this thing. Yeah. This is, you know what? This is one of those pay-per-views. It just feels like the whole thing snuck up on me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're looking at the fight card and you're like, oh yeah, this is Dvalishvili and Sandhagen fighting.
It's not bad. Honestly, the main card here, it's not bad. You got Merab and Corey Sandhagen. That should be an interesting one, at least like stylistically. Yuri P coming back after gotten some higher education and gonna take on Khalil Roundtree. That should be at least, some fireworks in that one. Josh Emmett on this one. You got Joe Pyfer back in action. So like you got some stuff on this one. You got Patchy Mix way down there on the prelims from the look of things. You got Edmund Shabazian, the aforementioned Edmund Shabazian. So like you do have some stuff. You're right though. It did feel like he just sort of like it felt like somehow there was nothing going on and still it flew under the radar.
In direct opposition of Big Onk, which I don't like the way it feels when I say it. You know what I delight in saying every time, and that is body bags.
You do like saying body bags with a
Joe
Z.
Pfeiffer, body bags. It's the Z at the end that really puts it over the top.
Yeah.
Corey Sandhagen plus 295. I saw Merab in the press today contradicting his coach to say, no, 95% of this fight will be striking. To which I said out loud, I don't believe you. But I guess we'll have to wait and see. Wait and see how much Merab is feeling himself in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I also read that as like, okay, Merab, a little bit of a silly little guy.
Yep, silly little guy alert.
We know that. And so like when he tells us like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna go out there and stand with this guy, that's the time for us to be like, okay, so we're saying things, we're having a good time in advance, but we don't necessarily mean all those things we say.
All right. Speaking of light heavyweight, you mentioned you got Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Roundtree on this thing. Obviously, the title fight is your main event. Let's say Yuri Prochazka manages to dispatch Khalil Roundtree, and let's say you still got, as we said, Carlos Ulberg hanging around out there after just really putting one on Dominic Reyes this past weekend. Would Yuri pass him up? Would Yuri pass Carlos Ulberg if he does something Yuri P style against Khalil Roundtree, or are we thinking Carlos Ulberg is the next man up, most likely?
I think it's probably Carlos Ulberg, just because he's fresh blood in the division, got some momentum. Yuri P feels like we've seen it before. Also, I think that if Yuri P goes out there and does something awesome, which I could absolutely see him doing. If you're the UFC, don't you think like, well, he'll keep. We could do Carlos Ulberg and Ankalaev, something like that, and then the winner can fight Yuri P, who will bring a certain like baseline level of excitement and attention to either one of those fights. And if you get Carlos Ulberg versus Yuri P or something, then you might be going like, all right, that one's better. But I think that the potential for Carlos Ulberg to be the guy who looks like he has more of a future, just younger, fewer miles on the tires, all that kind of stuff. You think like, all right, let's do that one. And then Yuri P can be the guy for when we don't have any other better ideas. Because honestly, Carlos Ulberg, he looked real good.
He did. He looked great.
Like he's just so quick. Dominic Reyes could not even find him in there. And anytime he tried to come forward and do anything, he was getting stung. If he held back, he was getting stung. And it just felt like only a matter of time. It seemed like Carlos Ulberg could do absolutely anything he wanted in there. You come out of that one and you just kind of go in like, all right, that's as good as you could possibly do it in that fight. Like without being absolutely stupid and just trying to run in there and finish the guy right away. Like that's as good a performance you can have. Look absolutely flawless. Don't think he took anything even close to damage unless he hurt his hand punching Dominic Reyes. So you could turn around. I mean, I think, he's planning to go over there just to see if his services might be needed or something like that. But I think that this is the guy you could have a much easier time generating some instant excitement about right now. Whereas Yuri P is the guy where we go, yeah, we know what he brings. We like it, but we'll like it the same 6 months from now,
It is interesting to note that Yuri Prochazka is actually 2 years younger than Carlos Ulberg, though maybe
What?
not as.
What?
I know, right? Right?
How old is
32? 32. He's a young pup. Which is maybe another reason why you think he'll keep.
That don't seem right.
I know. It doesn't seem right at all. If you Dominic Reyes come back over. Sorry, that's was a nice story for a while. We were trying to figure out what it meant to get a win over Anthony Smith in this day and age, and it turns out not enough to beat Carlos Ulberg. But one thing that I couldn't help but notice over the weekend is John Jones is never going to miss out on an opportunity to be the pettiest motherfucker in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Getting online to tweet, did Dominic win again in the wake of this fight? Not even, he beat Dominic Reyes. Like, it's a W on the record. The official record of John Jones has a W next to the fight with Dominic Reyes. It's just the insinuation that maybe Dominic Reyes kind of got screwed on the decision is enough for John Jones to be years later.
Yeah, years later.
Still tweeting about it.
And because no one really else is still talking about Dom Reyes and John Jones, people let that one go a long time ago.
All right, here to me is the $1 million question. We can close out on this one, and maybe again, I am just engaging in wishful thinking. But win, lose, or draw at UFC 320, if you're Alex Pereira, are you sticking around light heavyweight, or are you looking at the heavyweight division? Are you thinking, I don't know, man, maybe it's time. Maybe it's time. Cyril Gahn and Tom Aspinall, specter of John Jones, still hanging around out there. Maybe it's time.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he wins, he would be more likely to stick around and just keep defending that belt. If he loses, that would seem to create more of an argument for him to go into heavyweight, because what are you going to do at light heavyweight? You're just going to get in the way of other contenders potentially, and the UFC is going to be really reluctant to give you a third fight with Ankalaev as long as he's champ. So it would seem like, hey, it fixed the last time that you lost a big fight, right? We lost Israel Adesanya. You went up to light heavyweight, worked out pretty good for you. So do it again. If you lose this one, go up to heavyweight, see what you can do there. It would also, though, you'd be going up to heavyweight with a little bit of a dimmed star, wouldn't you? Because you just lost 2 in a row at light heavyweight. But I still think we're interested enough in Pereira. He has a fun fighting style that if he were to go up and say, hey, look, heavyweight needs some help. There's not a ton going on right now, whether John Jones comes back or whether he doesn't. I'm here. Put me in the mix. I think we could get excited about that.
Well, let me lay this on you. We can't trust John Jones to show up for the White House card, but could we trust light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira for a champ versus champ fight up against Big Tommy Gas Hands? Assuming. There's a lot of assumptions. But as you have said over and over again, we're making a big assumption just to think that this White House thing will actually fucking happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I mean, the way things are going, I am not even operating under the assumption that we will have a functioning republic by then. So we'll see. We'll see where we end up at the time. A lot could happen between now and then.
All right, that's going to do it this week for the Co-Main Event podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Please join us on the Patreon over at patreon.com/co-main event. We have fun over there. We think you will enjoy it. We have many handy tiers of patronage that you could sign up at. But if you don't, we'll see you back here next week. We appreciate the support. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out. Man, if you wind up with Magomed Ankalaev versus Carlos Ulberg, that would be pretty handy for the PLE era. Hey man, as long as you have Paramount Plus, we don't expect you to pay any more for this shit.
You're saying it's not one you'd want to try to sell 1 million pay-per-views with?
No,
but
disrespect.
If you already got the subscription, you might as well watch.
No respect to Big Onk and Big Ool, But I'm just saying.
Big Ool, huh?
It's as good as Big Onk as far as I'm concerned.